The rain fell like judgment on the 19th of October, cold, relentless. The kind of rain that seeps into bone and stays there. Blackthorn Manor stood against the storm, a monument of black stone and older sins. 3 stories of Gothic architecture clawing at gray skies. Gargoyles wept rainwater from corroded mouths. Windows reflected nothing. The estate had not welcomed sunlight in 600 years. On the eastern hill, a funeral procession wound through mud and dead grass. 17 mourners, 17 black umbrellas, 1 fresh grave. The casket was white, virgin white, mocking white. Bride number 17 was being laid to rest. She had lasted 4 months. Lord Dominic Blackthorn watched from the manor's highest window. He did not attend funerals anymore. He had attended too many. His reflection in the rain-streaked glass showed a man who had not aged in centuries. Dark hair touched with silver only at the temples. Aristocratic features carved from marble, eyes the color of winter storms, and something else in those eyes, something ancient and drowning. Guilt has a weight. 600 years of it can break even the immortal. The casket descended into earth. The mourners dispersed. The rain continued its indifferent baptism. Dominic remained at the window until darkness consumed the hillside, until the grave became just another shadow among many. Somewhere in the manor below, his 18th bride moved through empty corridors, silent, unseen, unknowing. He had married her 3 years ago to save her. The same reason he had married all the others. It never worked. Helena Ashford had not spoken in 3 years. The physicians called it trauma, some nameless grief that had stolen her voice. They prescribed tonics and rest. They prescribed forgetting. She forgot nothing. She remembered the day her father sold her to pay his debts. 18 years old, signing papers with hands that shook like autumn leaves. The registry office smelled of old books and older lies. She remembered the wedding, a ceremony without guests, a priest who would not meet her eyes, a husband who did not attend. She remembered the first night in Blackthorn Manor, alone in a room too large, silence so complete it had texture, weight, the kind of silence that makes you forget the sound of your own voice. 3 years, 1,095 days of existing as a ghost in someone else's house. Helena moved through the manor like water finding the path of least resistance. She ate meals in a dining room that seated 40. She walked corridors lined with portraits of people who looked like corpses. She slept in a 4-poster bed carved with symbols that hurt to examine too closely. She never saw her husband. Lord Blackthorn kept to the western wing. That was the unspoken rule. The housekeeper, Mrs. Margaret Wren, delivered his meals and collected empty plates. She managed the staff. She ensured the manor functioned with clockwork precision. She never explained why Lord Blackthorn and his wife lived as strangers. Helena learned not to ask questions. Questions required a voice she no longer possessed. On the 23rd of October, 4 days after the funeral she did not attend, Helena woke from a dream that was not a dream. 3 in the morning. The blood moon hung in the window like a crimson eye. She had been standing in a throne room, vast, ruined, walls of black stone veined with silver, columns cracked and falling, ceiling open to a sky the color of old blood. A figure sat on a throne of bones and shadows. She could not see his face, but she knew him. Every cell in her body recognized him with a certainty that transcended memory or reason. The figure spoke without moving, a voice that resonated in her chest cavity. "You came back to me." Helena opened her mouth to answer. Words formed, words she had not spoken in 3 years. Valdrin! The name tore from her throat like something being born, raw, primal, a scream that carried 600 years of longing and loss. The name shattered the dream. The name shattered 3 windows in her bedchamber. The name split the air itself with a sound like breaking glass and thunder. Helena woke to destruction. Shards of glass glittered on the floor like scattered stars. Rain poured through empty window frames. Wind howled into the room, carrying the smell of earth and endings. And in the doorway stood a man who was not a man, Lord Dominic Blackthorne, her husband of 3 years, the stranger she had glimpsed only in passing. But this was not the distant lord who avoided her corridors. His eyes burned silver white, not reflecting light, generating it. Twin stars in a face too perfect to be human. Skin that held the luminescence of marble. Cheekbones sharp enough to cut prayers. He wore no jacket. White shirt open at the throat. Dark trousers, no shoes. He looked like something interrupted mid-transformation, caught between man and myth. Power radiated from him in waves. Helena could feel against her skin. The air bent around him. Reality adjusted its rules in his presence. Say it again. His voice was wrong, layered, multiple harmonics vibrating in registers that should not exist. Helena's hand flew to her throat. No sound came. The scream had been the dream. Only the dream. But the broken windows were real. The glass on the floor was real. The figure in her doorway was terrifyingly real. Dominic moved into the room, each step deliberate, predatory, the movement of something that had hunted for centuries. You spoke. He stopped at the foot of her bed. Rain ran down the open windows behind her. Lightning illuminated his face in stark relief. You screamed a name that has not been spoken in 600 years. A name I buried with my kingdom. A name you could not possibly know. Helena pressed back against the headboard. Her heart hammered against ribs. Fear spiked cold and metallic in her mouth. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Recognition. Impossible and undeniable. She knew that name, Valdrin. It tasted familiar on her tongue. Ancient. True. Who are you? The words escaped before she could stop them. Rough. Unused. Her first spoken words in 3 years. Something flickered across Dominic's face. Pain. Wonder. Hunger. You truly do not remember. He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that felt like being dissected. Perhaps that is mercy. He moved to the window, stood in the rain without flinching. Water ran off him like he was carved from stone. I am called Dominic Blackthorne in this age, but I have had many names. Valdrin was the first, the truest. I was crowned Vampire King when your world was young. I ruled the kingdom of Umbra for 3 centuries before the fall. The words should have been madness. Helena heard truth in them, the kind of truth that rewrites reality. Vampire. Her voice cracked on the word. Yes. He turned to face her, and he let the mask fall away. His eyes blazed full silver, iris and pupil consumed by light. His skin thinned, revealing the faint tracery of veins that no longer carried warm blood. When he smiled, canines extended into delicate points, sharp enough to open arteries, beautiful enough to make you want them to. But it was his presence that truly changed, the weight of him. 900 years of existence pressing against the room, ancient apex, a dead thing animated by will and magic and something beyond human comprehension. Every instinct in Helena's body screamed, run, submit, die, anything to escape the attention of something so far above her on the chain of existence. She held her ground. Why did you marry me? The question hung between them. Rain filled the silence. Dominic's predatory aspect receded slowly. His eyes faded to gray. His fangs retracted. He became almost human again. Almost. Because I am a fool who believes he can cheat fate. Footsteps in the hallway. Rapid. Urgent. Mrs. Margaret Wren burst into the room. The housekeeper was a severe woman of 60. Silver hair pulled into a ruthless bun, black dress buttoned to her throat. She had served the Blackthorne family for 40 years and looked not a day older than when she started, because she was vampire too. Mrs. Wren stopped when she saw Helena. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She moved to Helena's side with inhuman speed, fingers lifting Helena's chin, examining her face. My lord, Mrs. Wren's voice was tight. She bears the mark. What mark? Helena tried to pull away. Mrs. Wren pressed a hand to Helena's chest, just above the heart. Helena gasped as heat bloomed beneath the touch. Searing. Branding. When Mrs. Wren removed her hand, silver light glowed through Helena's nightgown. A symbol had been etched into her skin, intricate, ancient, pulsing with its own luminescence. The covenant seal. Dominic's voice was hollow. It appears only when the blood bond recognizes true reincarnation. What does that mean? Helena stared at the glowing mark. It did not hurt anymore. It felt right, like something that had always been there, finally visible. It means, a new voice said from the doorway, that you are Catherine Vale returned, and you will answer for her crimes. 3 figures stood in the corridor. The first was a woman of impossible beauty, pale as fresh snow, hair like spilled ink, dressed in black silk that moved like liquid shadow, eyes the color of frozen lakes, Duchess Vivian Mordain, chief prosecutor of the High Court. The second was a man with dark hair and cruel eyes, angular features that suggested Eastern European nobility, a politician's smile that promised nothing good. Count Victor Ashcroft, council elder. The third wore leather and blessed silver, a hunter's garb, holy symbols at throat and wrists, dark hair shot with gray, face lined with violence and faith. Father Thomas Crow, vampire hunter, a vampire prosecutor, a vampire politician, and a vampire hunter standing together. The impossibility of it froze Helena in place. The Treaty of Shadows forbids you from entering my domain uninvited. Dominic's voice dropped to something subterranean, dangerous. The treaty, Vivian said, also states that if Catherine Vale returns to life, she must face trial. Your right of sanctuary does not supersede 6 centuries of law. Helena knows nothing. She is human. She bears the covenant seal. Victor gestured at Helena with casual dismissal. She screamed your true name. The evidence is indisputable. Who is Catherine Vale? Helena found her voice. What crimes? Vivian smiled. No warmth, no mercy. Catherine Vale created the erasure, a ritual that stripped vampire kind of their power and forced us into hiding. Thousands lost their territories, their thralls, their rightful place as apex predators. She will answer for it. I don't remember any of this. I'm not her. Memory is irrelevant. Victor moved into the room. Mrs. Wren positioned herself between him and Helena. The soul recognizes what the mind forgets. You carry Catherine's essence. Therefore, you carry her debt. Father Crow spoke for the first time. His voice was rough, worn. Lord Blackthorn, how many brides have you taken in 600 years? Silence. How many? Crow pressed. 17. Dominic's answer was barely audible. Helena's blood went cold. Vivian produced a scroll from her robes, unrolled it with deliberate precision. 17 marriages in 600 years, all to women bearing resemblance to Catherine Vale, all dead within 5 years. She began to read. Names, dates, causes of death. Elizabeth Thorne, 1423, wasting sickness. Age 22, Margaret Ashby, 1458, heart failure. Age 19, Anne Blackwood, 1502, consumption. Age 24. The list continued. 17 names, 17 deaths, a litany of failure. Helena Ashford, 1820, status, living. Age 21. Duration of marriage, 3 years. Vivian rolled up the scroll. You are bride number 18, Mrs. Blackthorn. The question is whether you will meet the same fate as your predecessors. Helena looked at Dominic, really looked at him, saw the guilt carved into every line of his ancient face, the weight of 17 deaths pressing down on immortal shoulders. You knew, her voice was a whisper, you knew I would die. I hoped you would not. Dominic's composure cracked. I hoped if I kept my distance, if I never touched you, never acknowledged you, the bond would not form. You would live a normal life, age naturally, die of old age never knowing what you meant to me. What do I mean to you? Everything. The word fell like a stone. You are Catherine returned, my queen, my mate, the other half of a bond forged 600 years ago. And every time you come back, every time I find you, I watch you die because the bond demands completion and human vessels cannot sustain it. The truth was worse than any nightmare. Helena was not a wife. She was an echo, a ghost wearing flesh, doomed to repeat someone else's tragedy. The blood moon rises in 28 days. Vivian's voice cut through the revelation. On that night, Helena Ashford will stand trial before the High Court. She will answer for Catherine Vale's crimes. The verdict will be final. And if I refuse to attend, Helena found strength somewhere. Pride, rage, the stubborn will to exist as herself, not as someone's echo. Victor smiled. Then Father Crow will execute you at dawn. Treaty law is clear. Reincarnated criminals have no right of flight. Crow's hand rested on the blessed silver blade at his hip. He met Helena's eyes. Something moved in his expression. Doubt, regret. But his hand did not leave the weapon. However, Vivian continued, Lord Blackthorn may invoke right of sanctuary, 28 days to prepare your defense, to understand your nature, to stand trial as his bonded mate, if you so choose. Dominic stepped forward. I invoke sanctuary. Helena Ashford is under my protection until the blood moon. She will be given time to access her memories, to understand what she is, and when she stands before the High Court, she will stand as my queen. Ambitious. Victor's smile was a knife. But if she is found guilty, the sentence is true death. The bond will destroy you both. Are you prepared to die for her? I have been prepared to die for her for 600 years. Dominic's voice was absolute. The question is whether she will accept my protection. All eyes turned to Helena. She sat in her broken room, rain pouring through shattered windows, a glowing mark on her chest, strangers demanding she answer for crimes committed by someone else in another life. She could refuse, die with dignity, or accept protection and become something other than human, complete a bond that had killed 17 women before her. Helena looked at the mark on her chest, at Dominic standing in the rain, at the prosecutor and politician and hunter waiting for her answer. She thought of 3 years of silence, 3 years of being invisible, a ghost in her own life. Perhaps it was time to become something else. I accept your protection. Her voice was steady, clear, the voice of someone who had nothing left to lose. Teach me who I was. Help me understand this bond. And when I stand trial, I will face them as myself, not as Catherine's shadow. The covenant seal flared brilliant silver. Light filled the room like captured lightning. And somewhere deep in her soul, in places memory could not reach, Helena felt something stir. Recognition, awakening, a voice that might have been her own, might have been someone else's, whispering across 600 years. You came back. The blood moon was 28 days away. The count had begun. The bonding chamber existed in the heart of Blackthorn Manor, a place architects had never designed, a space that predated the stones themselves. Dominic led Helena through corridors that twisted against geometry, downstairs that descended longer than the manor's foundation should allow, through doors that opened onto impossibilities. The chamber was circular, 50 feet across, walls carved from black stone that absorbed light. Silver veins ran through the rock like frozen lightning. Symbols covered every surface, ancient script that hurt to read. Candles burned with silver flame. They cast no smoke. They had been burning for 600 years. In the center stood a raised dais. On it, a silver chalice crusted with age. This is where Catherine and I attempted the first bonding. Dominic's voice echoed strangely. Where the ritual was interrupted. Where she died in my arms while the world burned around us. Helena stepped onto the dais. The stone was warm, alive, pulsing with a heartbeat that matched her own. The first exchange will hurt. Dominic moved to stand before her. Your body will fight the transformation. You will experience fever, convulsions. Your veins will burn. You may see things, memories that are not yours, bleeding through the bond. The other 17, they all went through this? 3 of them. The first 3 attempts. They died within days. After the 3rd death, I stopped trying the exchange. I thought distance would save the others. It only prolonged their suffering. Why do you think I will be different? Dominic placed his palm over the covenant seal on her chest. The silver symbol flared beneath his touch. Heat bloomed, recognition. Because you bear the seal, because you spoke my true name, because the bond chose you 600 years ago and has been searching for you through every incarnation since. And if I die like the others, then I will follow you into death. The bond does not allow one to exist without the other. Mrs. Wren entered carrying a silver tray. On it, a ceremonial knife. Its blade was obsidian, the handle was bone. The blood must be freely given. Mrs. Wren set the tray beside the chalice. Both parties must consent. Both must offer and receive. The balance must be maintained, or the magic will tear you both apart. She looked at Helena with centuries of sorrow in her eyes. I have witnessed this ritual 4 times, once successful, 3 failures. I pray tonight we see success again. Dominic took the knife. Give me your wrist. Helena extended her arm. Dominic's fingers wrapped around her wrist. Cold, gentle. He brought her hand to his lips. Forgive me for what comes next. He bit down. Pain exploded white and absolute. His fangs pierced skin and vein with surgical precision. Helena gasped. Her knees buckled. Dominic caught her, holding her upright as he drank. The pain shifted, transformed. Euphoria flooded her system, a warmth that spread through her entire body. She felt herself falling into sensation that transcended physical pleasure. This was connection, recognition, 2 souls acknowledging each other across the void of death and time. Through the haze, Helena felt Dominic's emotions bleeding through the bond. His anguish, his desperate hope, his love for someone she was and was not, his terror of losing her again. Enough! Mrs. Wren's voice cut through the delirium. My lord, you must stop. Dominic withdrew his fangs, licked the wound closed. The punctures sealed instantly, leaving only 2 small marks. Now you must drink from me. He took the obsidian knife, drew it across his wrist. Dark blood welled, almost black in the silver candlelight. He pressed the wound to Helena's lips. The taste was copper and winter and ancient earth. Every instinct screamed rejection. This was poison. This was death. Helena drank. The first swallow was agony. The second was easier. By the 3rd, she understood. This was not just blood. This was essence, power, immortality distilled into liquid form. This was Dominic himself flowing into her, rewriting her at the cellular level. The transformation began. Heat turned to fire. Her veins blazed with silver light visible through her skin. Her heart raced, then slowed, beat with a rhythm that felt wrong. Too slow, too measured. Her senses exploded. She could hear Mrs. Wren's breathing, could smell the silver in the candles, could see individual dust particles floating in the air, could feel the vibration of earth beneath the manor's foundation. And the pain came. It felt like every bone in her body was breaking and reforming. Like her blood was being replaced drop by drop. Like her humanity was being burned away in a fire that started in her core and consumed outward. Dominic caught her, held her against his chest as convulsions took her. His arms were iron. His voice was a lifeline. Hold on. You are stronger than this. Hold on. Images flooded her mind. Memories that were not hers. A woman in a library surrounded by ancient texts. That same woman laughing in moonlight. Standing before a throne. Wearing a crown of silver thorns. Catherine. These were Catherine's memories bleeding through. More images. Faster now. A battle. Blood on marble floors, vampires fighting vampires, humans with blessed weapons, chaos. And through it all, Catherine running, not away from danger, toward it. speaking words in the old tongue, activating a ritual as enemies closed in, a blade piercing her chest, silver burning through her heart. Catherine's last thought, he will survive. That is all that matters. Helena surfaced, gasping. The pain had subsided to a dull ache. She lay on the cold stone. Dominic knelt beside her, his hand on her forehead. Mrs. Wren stood behind him, holding the silver chalice now filled with their mixed blood. How long? 6 hours. Mrs. Wren's expression was carefully neutral. You survived the first exchange. The transformation will continue for 3 days. You will experience fever, visions, pain, but the worst is past. Helena sat up slowly. The world looked different, sharper, colors more vivid. She could see individual threads in Mrs. Wren's dress, could feel Dominic's presence like a second heartbeat overlaying her own. I saw her. I saw Catherine. Her memories. The battle. She died completing some kind of ritual. Mrs. Wren and Dominic exchanged a look. What ritual? What was the erasure? Silence stretched. Then Mrs. Wren spoke. Because I created it. Her voice was hollow. Catherine Vale created the erasure, and I helped her. Helena stared. You? My name was Isolde Crane 600 years ago. I was Catherine's handmaiden, her friend, her sister in all but blood. Mrs. Wren's composure cracked. I was there when she discovered the conspiracy, when she realized the old families would rather die than adapt, when she made the choice that would save them all and damn her forever. She moved to the chamber wall, placed her palm against the stone. The silver veins glowed brighter. The erasure was a ritual of forgetting. It rewrote human memory, made them forget vampires existed as anything more than myth. It stripped us of our power to command mortals, removed our ability to maintain thralls, ended our open rule. We went from gods to shadows in a single night. But it saved us. Dominic's voice was quiet. The human kingdoms had united against us. The church had armed hunters with blessed silver. 90% of vampire kind was already dead. The old families refused to see the truth. They preferred extinction over diminishment. Catherine saw clearly. Mrs. Wren's hand trembled against the stone. She spent 5 years researching, planning, creating a ritual that would ensure our survival. But it required sacrifice. Someone had to anchor the spell, channel the power, die to make it permanent. She volunteered. Helena understood. The memory was clear now. Valdrin forbade it. Mrs. Wren looked at Dominic. He ordered her not to proceed, commanded the old families to go into hiding instead. They refused. They conspired with human hunters, planned to assassinate Valdrin and install someone more sympathetic to the old ways. Count Victor. The name fell from Helena's lips, knowledge rising from depths she could not name. He was there, in the throne room. I saw him. Dominic's expression went cold, stone cold, ancient cold. Victor Ashcroft was my most trusted advisor 600 years ago. He spoke for unity, for adaptation. He convinced me to hold the bonding ceremony publicly, to show the old families that change was possible. It was a trap. Mrs. Wren's voice broke. Victor had made a deal with the betrayer families. Let the humans attack during the ceremony. Kill Valdrin. Take the throne. Preserve the old ways. Catherine discovered the plot the night before the bonding. Dominic stood, paced the chamber like a caged predator. She came to me with proof. I did not believe her. Victor was my brother in all but blood. I refused to suspect him. I thought Catherine was being paranoid, so she acted alone. Helena felt the truth in her bones. She completed the erasure knowing you would think she betrayed you, knowing she would die, knowing you would spend eternity believing she chose the ritual over you. Yes, the word was ash in Dominic's mouth. Mrs. Wren approached Helena, knelt before her, took her hands. I watched you die in his arms, watched him scream your name as the magic consumed you, watched him tear through the attackers like a storm of vengeance, but you were already gone. The ritual was complete. Vampire kind survived, and Catherine Vale was branded traitor by the very people she saved. Tears ran down the old housekeeper's face. Vampire tears. They left silver tracks on her cheeks. I have served Dominic for 600 years, waiting, hoping. I watched him marry 17 women who wore your face, watched him try to save you 17 times, watched him fail 17 times. You are the first who has survived the first exchange. She pressed Helena's hands to her heart. Welcome home, my lady, my queen, my sister. I have waited so long for you to return. Helena pulled Mrs. Wren into an embrace, felt the vampire woman shudder with sobs, 6 centuries deferred. I am not her. I am Helena. I have no memory of that life. I know. Mrs. Wren pulled back, smiled through tears. But you are strong enough to bear her legacy. That is all I ask. Dominic stood at the chamber's edge, his back to them, shoulders rigid. The second exchange is traditional vows. The third is consummation. Together they complete the bond, make you fully vampire, grant you immortality and power equal to mine. His voice was measured. But you do not have to proceed. The first exchange has given you strength, enhanced healing, extended life. It may be enough to survive the trial. Helena stood. Her body felt different, lighter, stronger. She moved to Dominic's side. Why did you not tell me the truth from the beginning? Because I am a coward. I married you intending to never touch you, never acknowledge you. I thought if I kept you at a distance, the bond would not form. You would live a normal human life, die of old age never knowing what you meant to me. You were willing to suffer alone rather than risk my death. I have experience with your death, Helena. I am not eager to repeat it. She turned him to face her, forced him to meet her eyes. Then help me survive. Complete the bond. Make me strong enough to stand before the court and fight for my life. Not Catherine's life, mine. The second exchange requires perfect consent, perfect truth. If there is doubt in either of us, the magic will fail. Then ask me if I consent. Dominic cupped her face with both hands, cold hands, gentle hands, hands that had held empires and lost everything. Helena Ashford, will you bond with me? Will you accept transformation? Will you stand beside me as equal and mate for whatever eternity offers? Not because of who you were, because of who you are. Yes, no hesitation, no doubt. I choose this. I choose you. The covenant seal blazed between them. Mrs. Wren retrieved 2 silver bands from the chalice, ancient rings, 600 years old. Speak the vows in the old tongue. The magic will recognize the words even if your mind does not. Dominic took Helena's hands, began to speak in a language that should have been incomprehensible, but Helena understood. The words resonated in her blood. Sanguis ad sanguinem, anima ad animam, te eligo supra omnia, in aeternum vinculatus, in aeternum tus. Blood to blood, soul to soul, I choose you above all, bound in eternity, yours in eternity. Helena repeated the vows, her voice growing stronger with each word. Power building in the chamber, the silver veins in the walls glowing brighter, the candles flaring. When she spoke the final word, magic exploded through the space. The bond solidified, no longer a thread, a chain, unbreakable, eternal. Helena felt Dominic's presence slam into her consciousness, his centuries of loneliness, his love for Catherine, his growing love for Helena herself, his terror and hope warring in equal measure, and he felt her 3 years of silence, her determination to exist as herself, her fear of the trial, her refusal to be merely an echo. They stood locked together, foreheads touching, breathing each other's breath. The bond is sealed. Mrs. Wren's voice was thick with emotion. 2 exchanges complete. 1 remains. Dominic stepped back, composed himself. The third exchange should wait. You need time to adjust, to understand what you have become. How much time do we have? The blood moon rises in 20 days. 8 days passed like water through cupped hands. Helena trained in the manor's forgotten ballroom. Dominic taught her to move with vampire speed, to strike with vampire strength, to use the heightened senses that made the world a symphony of information. She was fast, but not fast enough. She was strong, but the transformation was incomplete. She was vulnerable. On the 8th evening, as twilight bled across the autumn sky, Mrs. Wren entered the training room with urgent news. "My lady, there is something you must see." She led Helena to Dominic's study. On the desk lay documents, ancient scrolls, payment records 600 years old. "I found these in the manor's sealed archives, records Victor thought destroyed in the purge." Helena examined them. Her enhanced vision could read the faded ink, the signatures, the dates, payment orders to witch hunters, maps of the palace with defenses marked, instructions for the attack on the bonding ceremony. All signed by Victor Ashcroft. He orchestrated everything. Helena's voice was hollow. The attack, Catherine's death. He framed her for his own treason. Yes, Mrs. Wren's expression was grim. And he sits on the high court, positioned to ensure you receive the same fate. Dominic entered the study, saw the documents. His face went pale, then red, then cold as winter. "Where did you find these?" "Hidden vault, Eastern Tower. I have been searching for 600 years. Dominic picked up the evidence with hands that trembled. Centuries of grief rewritten in a single revelation. Catherine had not betrayed him. She had saved him, and he had spent 600 years believing a lie. "Tomorrow we present this at trial." His voice was granite. "Tomorrow we end this." A sound at the window, glass breaking. A figure in black dropped into the study. Father Thomas Crow. The hunter wore no weapons. His hands were empty. Guards materialized. Silver blades at Crow's throat. "Wait!" The hunter raised his hands. "I am not here to kill. I am here to help." "Speak quickly, Hunter." Dominic's voice was death itself. "Victor sent me to assassinate Helena, to make it look like transformation failure. He has been blackmailing me for 30 years, but I am done. I will not murder Catherine Vale twice." He pulled a leather satchel from his coat, opened it. Inside, more documents, more proof. 43 years ago, Catherine saved my village from plague. She bled into our well, spoke words in the old tongue. The sickness stopped. 400 lives saved. My mother was one of them. Crow looked at Helena, really looked, seeing not a target but a person. Victor orchestrated the attack 600 years ago. He is the betrayer, not Catherine, and I have proof that will stand before any court. I will testify, tomorrow, at trial. "Why help us?" Helena asked. "Because I owe Catherine Vale a debt 40 years old, and because some sins demand justice, even if it takes centuries." Dominic studied the hunter, measured his sincerity, found truth. "Tomorrow, then, we bring Victor's sins into the light." Crow nodded, left the way he came, disappearing into the night. Helena looked at the documents, at the evidence that would exonerate Catherine, at the proof that would destroy Victor. 20 days, she said quietly. "We have 20 days to prepare, to gather allies, to be ready for whatever Victor tries." "He will not go quietly." Mrs. Wren's voice was grim. "When cornered, old vampires are most dangerous." "Then we will be more dangerous." Dominic's eyes flared silver. "Tomorrow we end 600 years of lies. Tomorrow justice comes for Victor Ashcroft." Helena felt the bond thrumming between them, felt Dominic's rage, his love, his determination to protect her. She felt her own strength growing. The transformation incomplete but powerful. In 20 days, she would stand before the high court. She would face judgment for crimes she did not commit, but she would face it armed with truth, with allies, with a bond that transcended death itself. The blood moon was coming, and with it, reckoning. The high court convened at midnight beneath the blood moon. They gathered in the obsidian hall. a cavern deep beneath Blackthorn Manor, a place older than human civilization, where vampire kind had held court for 3,000 years. The chamber was vast, cathedral vast, carved from a single piece of black volcanic glass. Stalactites dripped from a ceiling lost in darkness. The floor was polished to mirror perfection. It reflected the crimson moon visible through a natural skylight. 12 thrones of bone and shadow, the elders, the oldest vampires still existing, each one a survivor of wars and purges that had obliterated empires. At the center throne sat Lord Archon Silvius, first among equals, silver hair to his waist, eyes like chips of Arctic ice. He had been ancient when Rome was young. 300 vampires filled the gallery, witnesses, judges, executioners. Helena entered in a gown of midnight blue, the covenant seal visible through the fabric, glowing silver against her skin. Dominic walked beside her, crown of umbra on his head, reclaiming his kingship after 600 years of hiding. Mrs. Wren followed 3 steps behind, her face a mask, but Helena felt her fear through the bond. The housekeeper had watched this trial before. It never ended well. Count Victor Ashcroft stood at the prosecutor's table, Duchess Vivian Mordain beside him. Both wore expressions of predatory satisfaction. Father Crow sat in the witness gallery, alone, a human among vampires, brave or foolish, perhaps both. Lord Silvius struck his staff against stone. The sound echoed like thunder. This court is convened to judge the reincarnated soul of Catherine Vale. The charges, high treason, creating the erasure without consent, stripping vampire kind of power and dominion, forcing our people into hiding and diminishment. How does the accused answer? Helena stepped forward, her voice carried through the chamber, strong, clear, not a whisper of the mute girl who had screamed a name in her sleep 28 days ago. I answer that Catherine Vale saved vampire kind from extinction, that she acted when the old families refused to see reason, that she died to ensure your survival, and if that is treason, then I am guilty. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Shock, anger, grudging respect. Victor stepped forward. The accused admits guilt. The trial is concluded. I move for immediate execution. Not so fast, Count Ashcroft. Dominic's voice cut like a blade. We have evidence that changes everything. Evidence that proves Catherine was framed. That the real traitor sits among us, wearing the mask of righteousness while his sins rot in darkness. Victor's composure slipped, just for a moment, long enough for those who knew to see. What evidence? What lies has she filled your head with? Not lies? Truth. 600 years of truth you have been desperate to bury. Dominic gestured. Mrs. Wren brought forward the satchel, the ancient documents, the payment records, the contracts signed in Victor's hand. Catherine discovered a conspiracy the night before our bonding, a plot to assassinate me, to install someone more sympathetic to the old ways, someone who would preserve vampire dominion even if it meant extinction. He spread the documents across the prosecutor's table. Let the elders see. Let everyone see. Victor Ashcroft paid witch hunters to attack during the ceremony, gave them the timing, the layout, the weaknesses in our defenses. He orchestrated everything, and when Catherine tried to stop it, when she completed the erasure to save us all, he let her die and blamed her for his sins. The chamber erupted. Shouts, denials, 3 centuries of careful politics dissolving into chaos. Lord Silvius struck his staff again. Silence fell like a hammer. These are serious accusations, but documents can be forged. Memory can be manipulated. Count Ashcroft, how do you answer? With contempt. Victor's voice was ice. Lord Blackthorn has been driven mad by 600 years of grief. He sees conspiracy where there is only Catherine's betrayal. These documents prove nothing. Then you will not object, Sylvia said slowly, to verification. He gestured. 2 vampire attendants wheeled in a device Helena had seen in her visions. A circular frame of silver, wires of blessed metal strung across it like a spider's web. The soul sieve. This device extracts memory, shows truth beyond words. If Catherine's memories reside in Helena Ashford, they will be revealed. All of them, including the night she died. Victor's face went pale. Vampire pale. Corpse pale. The sieve is dangerous. It has killed humans before. I object to its use. Your objection is noted and overruled. Silvius looked at Helena. Will you submit to the sieve? Helena looked at Dominic. He shook his head fractionally, begging her to refuse. The sieve had killed 3 humans in the past century. It tore memories from minds with brutal force, left some victims catatonic. Helena stepped forward. I consent. No, Dominic moved to block her. You do not have to do this. We have other evidence. Crow's testimony, the documents. It will not be enough. Helena touched his face. Let him feel her certainty through the bond. They need to see, to understand, to know that Catherine was innocent, that Victor is guilty. This is the only way. She kissed him, quick, gentle, then moved to the sieve before courage could fail. The frame was cold, the wires pressed against her skin, sharp, invasive. She could feel them probing, searching, reaching into the places where memory lived. Power activated. Pain exploded through her skull, not physical, spiritual. The sieve was tearing into her soul, ripping memories free, projecting them into the air above like some grotesque theater. The gallery watched Helena's life unfold. Her childhood poverty, her father's debts, the day she was sold. 3 years of silence in Blackthorn Manor. The dream, the scream, then deeper. The sieve found Catherine's memories. The vampires watched a woman in a library 600 years ago, researching, planning, discovering ancient rituals, falling in love with a vampire king who believed coexistence was possible. They watched her discover documents in Victor's chambers, payment orders to witch hunters, maps of the palace with defenses marked, proof of conspiracy so damning it could start a civil war. They watched her confront Victor, heard his confession. Valdrin is weak. He believes humans are equals. He will destroy us with his soft reforms. Better to die as gods than survive as shadows. They watched Catherine run. Not to Valdrin. She knew he would confront Victor, start a war, get himself killed. So she ran to the ritual chamber to complete the erasure alone, to save them all without giving Victor what he wanted. They watched the bonding ceremony, Victor opening hidden doors, witch hunters pouring through, Valdrin fighting, screaming for Catherine. They watched Catherine in the ritual chamber, speaking the words, channeling power that burned through her mortal frame, completing the erasure even as Victor's hired blade found her heart. Her last thought played for all to see. He lives. That is enough. The sieve released Helena. She collapsed. Dominic caught her before she hit stone, held her as she convulsed, as 600 years of stolen memory bled from her mind. The chamber was silent. Lord Silvius stood, ancient beyond measure, judgment incarnate. We have seen truth beyond doubt. Catherine Vale did not betray vampire kind. She saved us, at the cost of her life and reputation. She died a hero, and has been condemned as a traitor for 6 centuries. He turned to Victor. Count Victor Ashcroft, you are charged with high treason, with conspiracy to murder, with 600 years of lies and deceit. How do you answer? Victor did not run, did not beg. He stood with the arrogance of old nobility, unrepentant. I answer that I was right. Catherine's erasure destroyed us. We went from gods to mice, from rulers to refugees. I would do it again. I would burn the world to preserve what we were. Then you will burn alone. Silvius gestured. Guards moved to seize Victor. He fought, brief, brutal, futile. They dragged him to the center of the chamber, forced him to his knees. Victor Ashcroft, you are sentenced to true death, execution immediate. They brought the silver blade, the blessed blade, the blade that killed vampires permanently. No resurrection, no return. The executioner was a vampire older than memory, his face hidden behind a mask of bone. He raised the sword. Light caught the edge, silver fire. Victor looked at Helena as they prepared the strike. You think you have won. You have merely delayed the inevitable. We are dying. The erasure is killing us slowly. In 200 years, vampire kind will be extinct, and it will be Catherine's fault. The blade fell. It moved too fast for human eyes. Helena's enhanced vision caught every detail. The silver arc cutting through air, the moment of contact. Victor's neck separating, clean, final. His head rolled across polished stone. His eyes still held consciousness for 3 heartbeats. Surprise flickered across his features, then understanding, then nothing. His body remained kneeling for a moment. Then it began to crack, fissures spreading across his skin like breaking ice. Silver light bled through the cracks, growing brighter, more intense. Victor's corpse shattered from within. Pieces of him crumbled, fell, disintegrated into ash that drifted on currents that should not exist in the still chamber. Within seconds, nothing remained but gray powder scattered across the obsidian hall. True death. Final death. The kind from which there was no return. The gallery watched in silence. No cheers, no triumph. Just the grim satisfaction of justice 6 centuries delayed. Lord Silvius turned to Helena. Catherine Vale is pardoned. All charges dismissed. Her crime was no crime. Her betrayal was loyalty. She is innocent. He paused. Let that sink in, then continued. However, the matter of restitution remains. The old family's lost power, territory, legacy. Someone must answer for that loss. Someone must work to restore balance. Helena forced herself to stand, to face judgment, with dignity. What do you propose? Complete your bond with Lord Blackthorn? Become vampire, become queen. Spend eternity working to heal what the erasure broke. Give voice to those who lost. Find the balance between old ways and new. This is not punishment, it is duty. Helena understood. They were not freeing her. They were conscripting her, binding her to an eternity of service, of repairing damage she did not cause, of paying debts that were not hers. She could refuse. Die at dawn with her humanity intact, or accept. Become immortal. Become responsible. She looked at the 17 graves in her memory, at Dominic waiting, at Mrs. Wren crying silent tears of hope. I accept. Her voice did not waver, not because I fear death, but because someone must do the work. Someone must heal what was broken. I will be that person. The covenant seal blazed like a star. The court adjourned. The gallery dispersed. Helena was left standing in the obsidian hall with Dominic and Mrs. Wren and the ashes of a man who had lied for 600 years. It is done. Dominic's voice was hollow. Catherine is vindicated. Victor is dead. The truth is known. But the work remains. Helena looked at the empty thrones, at the dark cavern that had witnessed centuries of judgment. The old families are still diminished. The resentment is still real. Peace is still fragile. Yes, Dominic took her hand, which is why we must complete the bond, tonight, before anything else can interfere. Mrs. Wren nodded. The third exchange will seal your transformation, make you immortal, give you the strength to do what must be done. Helena looked at them both, at the family she had found in this impossible place, at the duty that awaited her. Then let us finish what Catherine started. They completed the third exchange in private, in the bonding chamber where it had begun 28 days before. Dominic was gentle, reverent. He made love to her as if she were sacred, as if she might shatter beneath his touch. Helena met him as an equal, strong where Catherine had been fragile, certain where Catherine had doubted. She was not the echo, she was the evolution. When they joined, magic exploded through the chamber, through the manor, through the earth itself, the bond sealed with a sound like the world's first heartbeat. Helena's mortality burned away. Her human limitations dissolved. She became vampire, fully, completely, immortal. The transformation took 3 days. Dominic never left her side, fed her blood, held her through convulsions, whispered 600 years of love into her ear. When Helena opened her eyes, they were silver, full silver, the eyes of vampire royalty. "How do you feel?" "Powerful." She tested her new strength, rose from the bed without effort, moved with inhuman grace. "Dangerous." "Complete." "And afraid?" "Terrified." "Honesty. Always honesty. I have eternity now. Eternity is a long time to carry someone else's legacy. You do not carry it alone." Dominic pulled her close. "We carry it together, as we should have 600 years ago." They emerged from the chamber as the sun set on the 3rd day. Helena felt its light now, not pain, but awareness. The world had become sharper, more vivid, every sense heightened beyond human comprehension. Mrs. Wren waited in the corridor. She looked at Helena with eyes that had witnessed centuries, saw the transformation complete, saw Catherine's soul finally housed in a vessel strong enough to contain it. "Welcome, Your Majesty." She bowed, deep, formal. "Welcome home." 5 years later, Helena stood in the ruins of the Umbra throne room. The castle had not been touched in 6 centuries. Forest had reclaimed it. Vines grew through broken walls. Trees split foundations. Nature taking back what civilization had abandoned. But the throne remained, bone and shadow, waiting. Helena wore a crown now, silver thorns identical to the one Catherine had worn, the weight of responsibility. She had spent 5 years rebuilding, slowly, carefully, giving voice to the old families, finding compromise between hiding and revelation. It was exhausting work, endless work. Peace was fragile. The old resentments ran deep. She visited the grave garden often. 17 headstones. She had added epitaphs beneath the dates. Elizabeth, who loved music, Margaret, who painted, Anne, who wrote poetry. They were not echoes now. They were people, remembered, honored. Dominic joined her among the ruins, stood beside her, king and queen, surveying what remained of glory. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Accepting the duty? You could have chosen death, kept your freedom." Helena was quiet for a long moment. The wind moved through broken columns, carried the scent of earth and endings and new beginnings. "Every day I regret it." Her voice was soft but certain. "Every day I wake and feel the weight of what I must do, the endless work, the fragile peace, the responsibility for people I never wronged." She took his hand, cold hand, beloved hand. "But every day I also choose it, because someone must heal what was broken, because Catherine deserves better than to be remembered as a traitor, because 17 women died trying to complete what I succeeded at. I owe them this. I owe all of you this. The work will never end. Then it is fortunate we have eternity." They stood together as twilight bled into darkness, as the blood moon rose red and beautiful over the ruins of a kingdom that would never return. Helena thought of the mute girl she had been, the invisible bride who had screamed a name in her sleep. That girl was gone, transformed, not erased, but evolved into something stronger, something necessary. She understood now what Catherine had known all along. Some loves do not save you. They transform you. They give you purpose beyond yourself. They make you strong enough to bear the unbearable. And sometimes that is enough. She turned from the ruins. Dominic offered his hand. She took it. Together they walked into the darkness. Not as ghosts of the past, but as architects of the future. Behind them, the blood moon set. Ahead, dawn was breaking. For the first time in 600 years, Dominic Blackthorne walked toward the sunrise. And he did not burn. Helena had given him that. The ability to withstand daylight. A gift born of the bond. A promise that even immortals could change. They reached the forest's edge as the first rays touched the horizon, gold and crimson painting the sky. Dominic stopped, turned his face to the light. felt warmth he had not known in centuries. "Thank you," his voice broke, "for coming back, for staying, for choosing this impossible life." Helena smiled. "Thank you for waiting." They walked into the dawn together. The 18th bride had survived, and in surviving, had learned to live.